Hello, everybody. My name is Grant, and I'm doing a demo of an AWS full stack application. So what you're seeing here is the front end, and these are trending coins. Currently, it shows the name of the coin, the symbol, the market rank cap, and also the count of how many times it's appeared trending. It's currently served here at this website here. You should be able to access it, no problem. Um, so the primary objective of this dashboard is to kind of show a list of trending cryptocurrencies that investors like myself can kind of get ahead of market trends and then make purchases. So it really doesn't have too many features built into it. It's a lot of the work here was done in like kind of the full stack setup of the application and whatnot. It's currently the front end is built using React and TypeScript and built with Webpack. So it uses Cloudscape. So what you see here is built with AWS Cloudscape, and it features a widget, and that widget shows trending coins, where each row kind of shows what coin is trending. Um, and it's not super complicated, this front end. It's not too much code, but kind of the meat and potatoes here is it does this fetch here on this API endpoint, which I set up with a backend, and I'll get into that. But it pretty much just does this fetch here on this API, and then this API is hosted with API Gateway, so that's kind of the front of it, and with a path here, get trending coin, so I can just kind of call this API whenever I want, and it responds with a JSON token data. I can kind of show what the response looks like here. So it pretty much just shows kind of like an array of responses here, where each one is an object. Um, so that's pretty much the front end. It's not too complicated. Um, I have it running locally here on my local host, so if I want to run this locally as well, it'll work. Um, the code kind of looks like this. This is the shape of the repository. It's pretty simple. It just has like a source directory, and it's built. Not too complicated here. So that's the front end. So a little bit of this flow here is kind of how the like the web page is served. So like the user visits the web page, they type in like this URL here, and that's hosted with Route 53. So Route 53 adds this A record to this hosted zone. So my hosted zone is grantstarkman.com, and I have a TrendBit A record on it. And I kind of go into that a bit more. And then it's pointed to a CloudFront distribution. So CloudFront, what it does is it pretty much like caches. It's a content delivery network, and it caches like content around the globe on various servers and whatnot. And it uses like the certificate manager to provide like SSL and encryption on the website itself. And it's pointed to this website bucket here. So I have all of the website assets stored in this website bucket, and the origin for CloudFront is the S3 bucket, and then Route 53 kind of points to this. So I'll go into the AWS console and kind of show what that looks like. If I go here to Route 53, go to hosted zone. So I have this hosted zone here, grantstarkman.com, and I have all of these records here, and I have this one record here, trendbit.grantstarkman.com, and it's an A record alias that routes to this CloudFront distribution here. So I can go into CloudFront and look at this specific route here. So we'll go into CloudFront. So this is the domain name. So this is the same domain name here that's listed here. And it kind of just it just routes the traffic to here. That's what the A CNAME record does, and then it has this SSL certificate attached to it, and then it has an origin set to that S3 bucket, so I can go into S3 as well, pull that up. So this is the S3 bucket here that has all my website assets. So that's pretty much the flow of it. Is You have Route53 going to CloudFront to S3 to serve these assets here. So that's pretty much the front end. I would like to improve the UI here to like include some more graphics to kind of show more information about these coins and maybe add some pagination. There's a lot I can do here, but the application is set up, so that's the good thing. I would also like to make API calls based on the environment. So instead of doing like this would probably be like a production endpoint. I'd probably want to do something like an alpha.api or a beta.api to kind of query different endpoints that are hosted in their own AWS account. So that's kind of a to-do. So that's pretty much the gist of the front end stack. I can also show some of the how I have this all set up. So I did not go into the AWS console and set any of this up really. This is all kind of done through the AWS CDK. So here I can kind of create a hosted zone, or I could use the hosted zone. I kind of fetch the hosted zone from the lookup, and then I create a website bucket. So this is S3. This is some stage data stuff, and then I do a bucket deployment. So after I build my front end, it kind of pulls in these assets from my local directory and kind of build them in. And then I have an origin access identity, which is pulling in, which allows me to pull in data or pull in the assets from S3 because that's the origin. Then I also have the domain name certificate here. This is the more certificate stuff, and then the distribution, actually, the distribution that uses the S3 origin and the origin access identity that I set up. And then there's also the trend, also the Route53A record that I added in here. So this is pretty much all the code that I use to set up the CDK. So none of this stuff is done manually through the console. It's all done through code. There's literally no configuration done through the console. So that's pretty much the front end stack, and then we also have the back end stack. There's nothing else I wanted to show here on the front end. No, we're good there. Okay. So the back end stack is a Docker container. It runs TypeScript Lambda, and this is. I also used a library called MIDI, which allows me to kind of abstract away some of the Lambda setups so that I can define paths and then define handlers. So I have a coin update handler and a get trending coins handler. And I'll go into more detail what these handlers do. This is kind of like the backend stack, and these are the only services that the backend stack interact with. They really only interact with DynamoDB, CoinGecko, and Twilio. So I guess I could show some of the what the Lambda function looks like. It's not too interesting. This is pretty much the Lambda function here. I have API gateway connected to it, and also event bridge, so that I can kind of trigger the Lambda function based on any events. So that's kind of the setup of the backend. So I guess one of my to-dos is to use a different backend stack. I'm not really a fan of this Docker container. I guess I can demonstrate kind of how it works, but what I do is, let me just go to the entry point here. This is the entry point, and then I just do like a Docker build, and it actually just builds the Docker container here. And then I can do a, once this is done building, I can do a Docker run. And then I can do a Docker run. And now the Docker is kind of, the container is running in the background. So if I open up another terminal here, I can just do a curl on it. And this is the get trending coins. So I literally just did a curl with the path of get trending coins, and this is what it responded with. So that's kind of how I can test it out locally. I'm not a big fan of this because I really don't like how I can, if I wanted to go into here and, or here, maybe this is a bit easier, and change something, I kind of have to do a Docker build and a Docker run again, and that's kind of slow. So I've thought about other ways to do it, like using like an Express server, or maybe even doing a Express server or using like a serverless framework. But this is kind of like a quick way for me to do it. So it didn't take me too much time to set this up. But if I do those, if I use something like Express, I'll have to set up like an EC2 instance and then expose the ports. So that's kind of a more difficult setup. But I like how with this Lambda function here, it's super quick and dirty for me to just kind of build an API. But serverless is also nice. Also takes a little bit of setup. So this is kind of like an easier setup for me to do it this way. Also, another thing I like to do is instead of using like DynamoDB, use Postgres. DynamoDB is kind of also quick and dirty, easy to set up, but I do want like a more sophisticated database to use in the future. So this is just well, I wanted to think about if there's anything else I want to show. Yeah, I guess I can show the DynamoDB table here as well. Let's pull this up. So this is what the DynamoDB table looks like. It allows me to do a kind of a scan on the entire thing, so I can see all the entries here. Right now there's 50 items, so yeah, that's DynamoDB for the backend. So I'll move on to the get trending coins. So right now I have the API set up behind Route 53, and then it goes to the API gateway, and then it goes to Lambda, which then is this code is executed here. So pretty much it does like a database scan operation using the DynamoDB SDK to return a sorted list of all of the DynamoDB entries. So yeah, there's nothing to this one's pretty simple. So I mean, it literally just does like a DB scan operation and with DynamoDB and just returns all the entries in the DynamoDB table. So that's get trending coins. I can also show the API for this as well. So in Route 53, we have the API right here, and this is actually another alias to API gateway. So I guess I can show API gateway as well. So this is my API gateway here. So it's pretty much just routing all those requests from Route 53 here in this record to API gateway here, and then it goes to the Lambda function, which is what's showing this connection here. That's API gateway. So that's where that's set up at. And then it just goes to DynamoDB. I guess there could be a destination here, like maybe something like I guess you can't use DynamoDB here. Oh well. So that's that. There's also the update trending coins. So this one's a little bit more complicated. So what I want to happen is I want DynamoDB to have new coin data every hour. So I want like my application to have fresh coin data, so that I know like as it kind of automatically fetches data from the CoinGecko API, trending coins, and stores them in the database. So the way that's done is I have this function here, just fetch and store trending tickers, and it just calls the CoinGecko API, and it responds with a kind of this response here, and then I take that and I call update coin data. So these are really the only things I care about right now from the CoinGecko API, and I call that every hour. And then update coin data, it updates the DynamoDB database, and if yeah, it updates the DynamoDB database, and it creates a new entry for every column if it doesn't exist already. And it'll notify me through Twilio as well. I haven't got this 100% set up, but I want to know every time a new coin is added, is newly trending. So that's that. And then there's also the CI/CD workflow. So there's two things that can happen here when a developer is programming. They can either push to GitHub, and that'll trigger a GitHub workflow action, which will install Node.js and AWS CDK dependencies, and then it'll run a recursive build and deploy script. Or locally, I can just run this recursive build and deploy script, and it'll automatically do it. So I can either push to GitHub and it'll update my entire infrastructure, or I can just run one script locally as well. So the idea to just running the local script locally is I can only deploy to an alpha environment without having to do a git push. And I feel like that's a good process. If you have a lot of people working on the same project, that they can somebody can just deploy to alpha and make sure what they're doing is working, and then after a bit of time, it just gets overwritten. So that's kind of why I did it this way for the kind of future development. But what this recursive build and deploy script does is it builds the front end code using npm run build, and then it builds the back end code using Docker build and pushes the AWS ECR. It then does a CDK synth, which creates a CloudFormation template, and then it does a CDK deploy, which will either create, deploy, or update the AWS resources based on the CloudFormation template. And then there's the Lambda update function code once that's done, because the Lambda doesn't know that the code has changed, and it's currently pointing to ECR. So you need to update the code, and then you need to create a CloudFront invalidation, because CloudFront caches S3 bucket contents globally. So you need to make sure that all the servers have the newest version of your build. So something I would like to do here is I'd like to create a beta, alpha, and prod environment, which will allow me to not break production, and kind of be able to go through each of the steps. And I feel like there's a lot of benefits there with that. So I'll go in. I kind of missed the part to show the backend code for the CDK. So the backend code looks something like this, where I create an ECR repository where I get the current ECR repository that I plan on pushing to, and then I attach that repository to the Lambda code here. So my Lambda, it just pulls in that ECR image from ECR, and then it creates a domain name with the certificate, creates the Lambda REST API, adds the resources, update trending coins, and get trending coins, and then it creates Ref3A records, so that I can point to my API gateway from Route 53, and then I create a DynamoDB table, and then I create a rule here which runs every hour, so that my database coins are always up to date. So that's pretty much it. Full stack. I hope this was informational, but this is the way that I have a full stack AWS application set up.